Welcome into another episode of the Player's Perspective Uncensored with Larry O'Bannon. Got U of L sharpshooter, U of L great Ryan McMahon with us today. Appreciate you taking a little bit of time out of your day to come through and join the podcast, my man.
And I appreciate you having me. It's good to be here. It's good to see you. Good to talk.
Oh,
Let's get it going.
already, man. So let me start you off by this, man, because I always ask my guests first off, do you drink bourbon?
Yes, I drink a good amount of bourbon. It's by far my favorite liquor ever since I've came to Louisville. And man, I enjoy an old fashioned pretty much any restaurant I go here. So that's my go-to liquor.
Nice. Now, what specifically is there a bourbon that you like to go to? If you mixing it with your old fashioned or something that you like drink neat or on the rocks, what's your go-to? What you say?
Yeah, so definitely old fashions are my favorite way to drink bourbon. I think as I continue to mature in my bourbon drinking, I'll start to just like it more on the rocks or just neat. But my dad and I, we drink a lot of Four Roses.
Okay.
I don't know why. That's just kind of our go-to. It's not overly expensive, but we think it's pretty good quality. And at least for Floridians, we think it's good quality. And then every once in a while, we'll split a really nice bottle.
Nice. Now, Four Roses is definitely quality liquor. I got a few bottles in my cabinet as well. Great stuff, man. So let's dive in and start to talk about basketball a little bit. I want to talk about your inspiration when you were younger. Who inspired you to want to play basketball, or who was your biggest inspiration growing up, just to even pick up a basketball, just growing up?
Yeah, I would say my inspiration was my father. He played basketball in college. He played at Valparaiso. And one thing he's always kind of instilled in my little brother and I is be better than me, take it to the next level that I did, whether it's success financially, success in a sport, success in how you raise a family. Be better than I did, because I think I did better than my dad. And I want you guys to outdo me. And if we continue to do that, our family legacy will continue to improve and improve. So I don't know. I think that's always just kind of stuck in my heart. And he's always had a basketball in my hands, and I've loved the game since I was a little kid. So I think deep down I had a little bit of a motivation to just be better than him. And it only made it easier to try to get to a higher level and do better than him in the basketball world when I had such a passion and a love for the game.
Nice. Now, that's a great father, man. My father sort of approached me with the same thing. My father would never tell me that I played a good game.
Yeah.
Never would tell me that I played a good game. And man, that drove me to want to get him to give me that compliment to say, like, you played a good game. And like, man, it didn't matter if I had like 30 and 15, man.
Yeah.
What'd you think of the game? You played all right. I'd be like,
Yeah.
yeah.
In games, I was lighting it up. He would say, you were shooting the crap out of the ball today, but that guy beat you when you were on defense a couple times, or you had too many turnovers. There was always something to improve on. And I like that. Some people, that can kind of break them down and get them discouraged. But I'm a perfectionist, so I'm always looking to try to improve my game and be better. And I know if I had a 37-point game, if I had a 41-point game, there was things I could have improved on. There's no such thing as a perfect game. So, my dad, a lot like yours, did the same thing.
Right. Now, let's talk about your journey to the University of Louisville. Now, we've heard, during the games, announcers would say, Dick Vitale recommended you to Rick Pitino. Is there some sort of relationship that you have with Dick Vitale, and sort of explain how it all worked together that you ended up at the University of Louisville?
Yeah, so I'll set the record straight right now. I mean, there's a lot of people saying that we were neighbors or we were family friends, and that was never the case. The most encounter I had with Dickie V growing up was that he had a house in Sarasota. That's kind of where he resides. And we were just coincidentally going to the same church as him. And when I was growing up, I would usher with my dad. So my dad would help people to their seats at church, and I would dress up in my suit and tie, literally just because I didn't want to sit in the pews. I thought it was more fun to sit in the back and hang out with my dad in church. And Dick Vitale went to the same church as us. So my first encounters with him were walking with my dad, walking him to his seat and just kind of looking at him like, oh my gosh, I see you on TV all the time. Like,
Right.
you know, just that starstruck kid. And then I had a little alarm clock that woke me up every morning with the sensational baby, you know, his voice and all these different things every morning. It would be a
Right.
different catchphrase from Dickie V. So that was like the most encounter I had with him. Every once in a while, I'd see him at a breakfast spot in Sarasota, um, but never really talked to him, never really did anything. I knew he was super involved in the community and he was a really good guy, but I had no relations with him at all. And throughout my AAU career growing up, I was on a lot of different really good AAU teams. And AAU is huge now in high school. Growing up, your sophomore summer going into junior year and junior summer going into senior year are arguably the two most important summers for recruitment. You know, that's where a lot of things are happening. A lot of coaches are coming to watch players, and you know, the motion in terms of recruiting is really going. You know, there's that live period where coaches are gone pretty much every weekend. Those are the most important periods in recruiting. And so that's a lot of times where kids get picked up by colleges, and that's where they start their recruiting. You know, their snowball starts to roll over the summers. And you know, my freshman year, my sophomore year, summers, I was on some pretty good AAU teams, but they were like semi-local AAU teams that we had a lot of chemistry, but not necessarily a lot of the big names. But we would compete and we would fry some really good teams just because of the chemistry we had. And we were able to practice more than some of these big AAU teams.
Right.
And I was kind of one of the main guys on that team, and I was just putting up big numbers. And my junior year going into my senior year that summer, I was on a Florida Elite B team, and it was that same group of guys for like 2 or 3 years that had come up together. And maybe in middle school we were on all separate teams, and then we kind of combined in the beginning of high school. And I was putting up big numbers, and it was like a Florida Elite B team. And I finally got the opportunity to go up to the A team, who goes to the Adidas Gauntlet and plays in front of all those coaches. And I was on that team, and I started realizing like I'm not getting much playing time. There's 15 guys, like a lot of AAU teams. There's a lot of politics. There's a lot of parents chirping in the coach's ear. You got to get my son more playing time. He has this coach looking at him in this game, and stuff that I didn't really know. I was just out there trying to hoop and, you know, get my name out there. So nothing really came of my junior year summer going into senior year. And, you know, I had the small Division III schools looking at me that are high academic because my grades were good. I had some national championship contender, think Bellarmine type of Division II schools looking at me. One was Florida Southern down in Florida, and then some really small Division I teams. And so I was doing all the reach outs to these college coaches, like sending them game film. I shouldn't say me. It was really my mom. She was, you know, doing all that stuff for me because I was focusing on ball in school. And luckily, my high school senior season, this doesn't happen a lot. I just kind of blew up. I continued to work, and we had a really good senior year, good team that had been growing up together since we were in 8th grade. And I just had an incredible year and started making more and more noise for myself. And eventually Dickie V just strolled into one of my games where he was actually there to watch Antonio Blakeney, who was my former teammate and highly, you know, recruited or top recruit in the country. And he came to see him, and we were playing them, and I just played really, really well. And ever since then, he started watching me more and more and talking to my parents, like, who's recruiting him? Who's looking at him? You know, he can play at the highest level. I've seen him play, and I've seen these kids play, you know, in the ACC, and I know he can play there. So he just kept coming to more and more games, and it felt like every time he came to a game, I'd play better and better. And it was just kind of all finally percolating. It was all working out in my favor, finally. You know, when I had multiple summers where I feel like I was either doing well and not getting recruited or not really getting an opportunity to get those looks by those coaches. So, and again, that's rare. Like, not a lot of kids get recruited in high school season, you know, because it's the same season as college basketball. The coaches are mainly focused on their team and trying to win a national championship, trying to win their conference. Right. So, you know, I was I think I was shooting like 52% from the 3-point line that year in high school. I was just lighting it up. Felt like I couldn't miss. And I know the Cardinals struggled shooting the ball that year. So then Dickie V would just start talking at games about me, showing my highlight films to these college coaches. And Rick Pitino was like, I'm not recruiting any more players unless they can shoot. And Dickie V said, well, I got a shooter for you. And that's kind of how the ball started getting rolling. And, once Coach Pitino and Louisville hopped on board, it was a free for all. So many other colleges and coaches were interested in me, but they were the first ones to really give me a shot and believe in me. So it's one of the main reasons I chose Louisville.
Nice. Now, speaking of Rick Pitino, he brought you into Louisville, but during your 5 years there, you played for 3 different coaches. Talk about your transition from Pitino to Coach David Padgett, from Coach David Padgett to Coach Chris Mack. Talk about your transition to each one and how it affected you overall, having 3 different coaches in 5 years.
Yeah, so that's another unique thing about my basketball career is, not a lot of kids, unless they're transferring schools, have 3 different coaches. So, I came in as a freshman, willing to learn, knowing that I needed work to do on my body and just the speed of the game, everything like that. And, one thing I really tried to do sitting on the sidelines a lot in practice and in the games my freshman year was just listen to the great Coach Pitino. He's a Hall of Famer already. He's a genius when it comes to the game of basketball. But as a lot of guys know that have played for him, he's crazy. He can get on you. Sometimes it feels like he's getting on you just to get on you, and you don't really know why. You're struggling to get adjusted to the new speed, the new intensity of his practices. You're giving your all, and he's still on you, and it just doesn't really make a lot of sense to you until you kind of start to mature in your basketball career, and you're like, all right, I see what he was doing there. So the thing about Coach Pitino is I'd have to say he was like a genius when it came to the game of basketball. He would see things and he'd be like, how did he even see that? He wouldn't even watch a single player. He wouldn't watch the ball. He would just watch the entirety of the court. And it was so cool to see him do that because he never missed anything. If anybody made a mistake, he could break it down he could break down the entire play like that. And at halftime, he could remember every single play and every single mess up throughout the entirety of the first half. And it was just incredible to see. Like, his mind for basketball was just unreal. And so that's the main thing I feel like I took away from Coach Pitino is just how much of a genius he was. But he was like a mad scientist at the same time. He got himself all worked up that he couldn't eat on game days or else he'd throw up. Like, little things like that, you're like, man, this guy is literally psychotic, but he's a genius. So It was just cool seeing all that. And then you got his, confidant, Coach Padgett, who has a mind for basketball like Coach P. He's less experienced, younger, but I think he could be an incredible coach one day just because when he was playing at Louisville, they ran a lot of the offense through him just because his mind for the game was so advanced. And so when he came in, he didn't switch anything up. That's the main reason we wanted him to stay and we wanted him to be our coach is because we knew it was September and he wasn't going to change a thing. He was going to do things the exact same way Coach P was. And we weren't going to have to deal with a lot of the craziness that Coach P sometimes had, when he'd be getting on us. Coach Padgett's a little more chill. And some people see that as a good thing. Some people see that as a bad thing. But so I saw Coach Padgett as just like an extension of Coach P without the experience. And then along comes Coach Mack. That season was, a struggle just mentally with all the stuff that we had going on. And then, I'll talk about what was the second half of the question, how did
it affect you overall? Just not really being able to have a consistent system to be able to really build and grow into and kind of know the ins and outs and grow confident in it. Like a lot of kids play for the same coach for 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And the first year, like you said, you kind of struggle. And then that second, third, or fourth year, you know it like the back of your hand. So now you kind of know little shortcuts, little cheating things
Mm-hmm.
that you can do to different
Yeah.
defenders. You didn't necessarily have that because it seems like each year there was a different system. It wasn't so much different with Coach Padgett, but, you know, may have changed up a little bit, and then a total different change with Coach Mack. How did that
Yeah,
affect you overall?
it was different because some people could say, like, you had Coach Pitino for 2 years, but the first year I was redshirting. It's a completely different experience. You know, I'm not getting game experience. Um, I'm a practice player. I'm trying to implement other guys that we're scouting against in practice my, freshman
Right.
year.
Right.
So that was a completely different experience. Then I had my first year with him where I'm trying to learn and figure out where I can fit in and help us win and get playing time and, experience him in a game setting where he's actually yelling at me, not one of my teammates. And starting to get the system under my belt, in terms of game experience. And then switched up with Coach Padgett. And although Coach Padgett was the same as Coach P and kept a lot of things the same, we also had a completely different coaching staff. So they were bringing in different suggestions and concepts that we had to get adjusted to. And then that season ends. And then, like I was about to say, along comes Coach Mack. And Coach Mack is like, he's kind of like a mixture of Coach Pitino in terms of his brain for the game of basketball is incredible. He's a player's coach. I think he doesn't get on you unless he needs to, but when he needs to, he gets on you, like really gets on you.
Right.
And that's one thing I respect about him is because I don't like when he is getting on you or, MFing you, it doesn't feel unnecessary. It's like, all right, I deserve that. It doesn't
Right.
get diluted.
Right.
And that's one thing I really loved about his coaching style. Whenever, if I ever coach, I'm definitely going to try to adopt that philosophy. And you can just tell that Coach Mack is going to be an incredible coach because he knows he's not at that genius level yet, but he works to get there. That man watches more film than any coach I've ever seen, ever heard of. He wants to be so good. He knows he wants to improve. He knows he has room to improve. And that's why I feel like he's going to be one of the greatest coaches ever. On top of the ability that he has to recruit and the relationships he can build with his players, it's just incredible. So I kind of had a tale of 3 different types of coaches, but they're all really good.
Nice. Now, did the thought of transferring ever enter your mind?
It did, yeah. I mean, well, they were throwing on the death penalty when Coach B got fired like it was nothing. I thought I wouldn't even have the chance to transfer. It was just, I'm going to have to go somewhere else. I'm going to have to go to school somewhere else.
Right.
And then after that year, I didn't know who was going to be coming in as our head coach. And, there was rumors about some coaches that I've heard bad things about coming in here, and I didn't want to be a part of that. And so I had considered transferring then. And, man, thank God I didn't, because Coach Mack was just incredible. I mean, he gave me referrals of his, previous players. He said, sent me their numbers, text him, ask him what you think about me, or what they think about me. They'll be honest. And all I heard was positive things. So it just made me more and more confident going into that situation. And I'm a people pleaser. So I love pleasing coaches. I love, doing what I'm told. I like knowing what I need to do and trying to do it at the highest level. So if they want me to shoot the ball at a high level, I'm going to try to do it to the best of my ability. If they wanted my role to be playmaking, I would have tried to do that at the best of my ability. And I think I like that a lot about Coach Mack too, is just how clear cut everything was. It gave me room to really find my role in the program and do it at a high level.
Now talk about your senior season. Talk about it collectively, talk about it as far as you individually. How did you feel about this last season for you?
I felt like it was it was going to be a perfect crescendo of just my career and all the BS that I've kind of been through. Man, like I was saying, you had my redshirt year, which was a struggle in itself. Then my first year under Coach P, then a new coach and Coach Padgett, when that whole year, all the BS that came with that, a new coach again with Coach Mack. And it was like my first season where I finally felt like I had some consistency and where I knew what was expected out of me and where I'd be able to fit in and really do my role at a high level in the program and help us win. And man, and then the way it ended like that, it was like, of course, you can't just have one normal year in college basketball. That's just the way kind of my career went. But
Right.
I'm coming to terms with it, and I felt overall I've had a great year. You know, I felt like I improved in a lot of areas. I felt like a lot of my numbers went up statistically. So for people that are statistic junkies, I felt like I checked off that box. We were number one team in the country for a while. We were top 10 for the majority of the season. It just felt like we had a really successful year. We really felt like we could have won an ACC championship and gone to a Final Four. But like I said, it got cut short.
Now, let me ask you this, because I thought you had a great year, and I love the fact that you were just unconscious about your shooting ability. And you could tell me being a shooter, I could understand that because that comes with practice in the gym. You don't have that type of confidence to just shoot it anytime you get daylight without having confidence of building repetitions in the gym. So let me ask you, halfway through the season, you move from starting to coming off the bench. As a competitor, I know that it bothers you, but how did you feel about that? And I know you said you were a people pleaser and you're doing what's best for the team, but, you know, how did that make you feel?
I mean, selfishly, you're inhuman, I feel like, if you're just unaffected by that.
Right.
It definitely maybe shot my confidence a little bit, but I trusted our coaching staff and what they were telling me, that this will help us win more games. And I felt confident that they weren't BSing me. And the way they described it in terms of getting DJ into the lineup more, it made sense to me. And I knew DJ could be an integral part of, you know, our program and of winning. And we saw that in the Duke game and throughout other games throughout the season. So it definitely shot my confidence a little bit because it came around the time we were losing a couple games. And I was like, I don't want people to think that, you know, they're taking me out because I was the problem. And so I guess it was a little bit of an insecurity kind of thing. But at the end of the day, like, I even told Coach Mack, like, whatever we got to do to win, like, that's all that really matters to me. It's my last year. I personally knew, I told myself, like, I know I need to be on the court to help us win. So it's not like my playing time is going to go down a bunch. Like, it's just a starting versus coming off the bench. It doesn't matter. You've come off the bench for 3 years before this. Like, it's not that big of a deal.
Right. Because I felt like you and Wayne were sort of barometers on the team because it wasn't many shooters. They had you, yourself, and you had Jordan were the most consistent and the most deadly. And so, you know, guys were going, you know, teams were going to be keen in on Jordan. They wasn't going to, you know, really let him catch and shoot. And so at some point, you were a really big, important factor because you had to space the court, you know, especially for DJ to penetrate and for Dwayne to penetrate and to keep the spacing off of Steven inside. So it was definitely a key factor, man. And I felt like you and Wayne were sort of the barometer because Wayne was sort of like the heart and soul of the team. He just did all the dirty work. Everything noticed, but he had a motor and just, you know, has a dog about him, man, and that I just love about him. So what did Coach Mack tell you guys once you guys found out that the season was going to be canceled for sure?
Well, I mean, I'll be honest with you, that whole experience was kind of a blur. I remember crying in the hotel room after we found out the ACC tournament was going to be canceled. And it was like, at that moment, I'm like, if the ACC tournament's canceled, there's, you know, no way that the NCAA tournament's not going to be canceled.
Right.
And this is kind of how my career ends. It's unfathomable to think about. And then I just remember him kind of routinely telling us, like, this is like, you know, plane is set up. I don't know how it's going to work with so many teams trying to get out of here. We'll keep you updated. Stay close to the hotel. And then we got on the plane and we got back, and we kind of had like our final meeting in the airplane hangar right when we got off the plane in Louisville. And I was kind of just blanking out for half of it, thinking to myself, like, there's no way this is how it ends. But I remember him, there was so much still indecision left. So it's not like there was ever like a closure of like, man, I really enjoyed like, this year. Like we were like, he was more like, we'll keep you guys updated on, we don't know how this is all going to go down. They might be postponing it. They might figure out a way to do it with no fans. Like we still had that hope in us. So like there was half of us that were still hopeful, and there was the other half inside of us that were like, dang, this shit might be over. And
Right.
man, so I like, honestly, it felt like just another regular team meeting. It didn't really feel like it was an end to the season kind of meeting. And I still wish I need that closure. I still wish I had it. I'm going to have to sit down with Coach Mack here over the next month or two and get some just closure on my career, my college career, and talk to him just about that last season, just so I can, kind of close that chapter.
Right. And so going into next year's team, you guys lost a lot of key guys from this team. Yourself, you lost Wayne, you lost Stephen Enoch, Darius is gone, you lost Jordan Nwora. 5 key guys from this team. How do you think these guys are going to do next year? Because they're going to be really young. How do you see next year's team faring off?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a little bit of a not rebuilding, but a little bit of a learning curve, just because you're going to have those freshmen that were freshmen last year that are now sophomores step up into bigger roles. Sam's going to need to be a key guy. Josh is going to need to be a reliable person off the bench, or if he starts. Aiden is going to have to contribute big time. Like Q Slaz, he's gonna have to come in and be able to stretch the floor. Like they're all going to need to contribute and figure out their way in the system in order for them to win. If you can't rely too much on the guys coming in, because Coach Mack's system is such a unified system that it takes all 5 guys, especially on defense. So to say that they're completely rebuilding, I don't think that's fair, but I think there's definitely going to be a learning curve.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting, man, because everybody that I just named was Pitino guys. And so now all the Pitino guys are kind of gone, and that really sort of helped ease the transition for Coach Mack. So now, everybody that he has on his roster now are kids that he recruited. So I hope it's not necessarily a rebuilding year, but it'll be interesting. Obviously, everybody's probably expecting DJ to be the leader of the team next year, but just seeing who else is going to step up with Sam and just seeing how it all plays out, man, I think it's really going to be interesting to see next year. And I think Coach Mack is really going to do a great coaching job because he's a great coach. And so I expect the guys
I'm not, like you were saying, I'm not too worried, because Coach Mack is such a good coach. It's like with the talent that they have, there's no way that they're going to be in a rebuilding type of season, where they'll be below 500 or anything like that. I feel like the way Coach Mack coaches and the simplicity of how concrete your role can be and just do that at a high level, there's no way that they're not competing at the ACC with the talent that they have. I mean, the last Pitino guy that he has is Malik, and Malik has embraced Coach Mack and his system more than almost anybody. I mean, he's going to be a second-year captain. He's a leader. Even when he wasn't a captain, we looked to him as a leader. He's him and DJ, I can see them definitely leading this team to the next level. Jay Scrub would have been a nice addition, but I know he's going to be doing big things at the next level. So I'm excited to watch next year, man. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, man. I think it'll be a little bit up and down at the beginning just for the lack of experience with those guys. But I think as the season plays along and those guys get more confident in their roles and they get more experience, man, you'll see the play definitely start to escalate. So talk to me now about your plans going forward. Talk to me about your future and what you have planned and what you're doing now.
Yeah, so basically right now I'm training for a TBT tournament, the TBT tournament that some people watch. It's a pretty big tournament. It'll be on ESPN. July 4th through the 14th, I believe. So tune in, Card Nation, if you guys want to see that. And I hired an agent, and they're trying to get me any deals they can overseas. It's or in the G League, but it's kind of messed up right now with the pandemic, just because you know, a lot of these rookie teams and lower level teams that you have to start out on as a rookie, they rely a lot on sponsorships and you know, local companies for money to fund their team. And with the economy and the pandemic and everything, you know, there's not a lot of extra cash flow flowing around. So if they're able to pay a rookie $70,000 for a year for a season, they might only be able to pay him 30 or 35. So I just have to weigh up my options, because I have a financial advising job lined up here for Mass Mutual in Louisville. And that's kind of plan A. And then I have some other things on the back burner that I could be possibly looking into in the finance world as well. So it'll be one of those two things, most likely staying here in Louisville if I don't play overseas, and going to be possibly building the house here in next year.
Definitely, man. And so, yeah, this COVID definitely has cut the budget for a lot of teams going forward into playing overseas. I suspect that it will bounce back, but it'll take some time. So definitely weigh out your options, man, and see which one's going forward. But I'll tell you what, man, there's nothing like some of the experiences that you get playing overseas and just traveling and seeing some of the things and the landmarks and sites that you get to see, man, is priceless. So definitely good luck going forward with that. And with you being such a big figure playing on the team at the University of Louisville right now, obviously there's protests going on for injustices for Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery. What are your thoughts on the protest and the movement that's going on in Louisville right now?
Man, I've had so many conversations and so many thoughts about this. I feel like we could have our own separate episode about this in itself. I just think
really cool.
I think the main thing right now is, as a white person in America, is to become as knowledgeable as possible, to listen as much as possible. Because if you don't see the privilege and the things that are going on in the country, like, you don't want to see them. So it's obvious that you know, it's very evident that there's a problem in our country that needs to be fixed. I think it's the issue, or the really difficult area isn't seeing the problem. It's figuring out how to fix it. The problem is identifying the problem is a lot easier than identifying the solution, in my opinion. But we just need to continue to educate ourselves and, man, and do anything we can. The one thing about the protests, and I think protesting can be very powerful. It's just, I don't necessarily agree with some of the way that people, I feel like, are doing it maybe for social media or just for clout, or doing it for the wrong reasons. It's one thing to stand out there and protest and do things for the right reason, but I don't think when I go out there and I see people just like posing for pictures and doing stuff like that, and then kind of going on their way, it's like, yo, what are you really doing this for? You know,
Right.
there's a real issue going on in our country. It's not, this isn't an excuse to get a cute Instagram picture. So, again, I could talk about this for hours. I would love to hear some of the things you think about it all.
You know what, man? I think it's a good thing, but like you said, I think a lot of people are in it for the wrong reasons. In the beginning, you had, you know, certain groups that were there to try to frame the Black Lives Matter movement as something that it wasn't: violent, you know, people damaging and destroying property. And a lot of times they were looters and vandalizers coming from out of town. And
Yeah.
I think you have people that sincerely are there and that are fed up and that are angry at the outrage for the social injustices, for the police brutality, and for the killing of unarmed Blacks. But then you have some that necessarily are doing it because it's the cool thing to do right now. Just saying it, not necessarily knowing what it means or having the experience of it. But then you have some people that I've talked to who are Caucasian, male or female, that have experienced for a short period of time what it's like to be a black male or female. I was talking to a young lady, and she said she was out protesting, handing out packages for people that were protesting. And she said that she was surrounded one time by some police officers and National Guards. And she said they were closing in on her and she couldn't go anywhere. She said she was so scared and so terrified. And I told her, I said, that short experience for you is what it's like to be a black man or woman in America when you're being pulled over by the cops. I said, that's how we feel all the time. And I said, you've got to experience it for a short amount of time. And I think she understood beforehand, but she really got to understand and experience it for herself in that short period. And so to really see people acknowledge it and understand and empathize with it, man, it's really a positive step in the right direction, and really, really, happy to see people rallying around it and united and standing for justice and standing for the right reason. Man, like you said, this is a conversation that we could have as a whole new episode, but I know you got to run, man. I'm gonna get you to this barrel proof segment right here. We're going to ask you some rapid fire questions. We don't want you to give it a lot of thought, man. And, just give us your first answer. We're going to roll with it.
Let's go for it.
First question. Toughest person you ever had to guard?
Russ Smith.
Yeah, that's a tough cover.
He's a bucket.
If you weren't playing basketball, what would you be doing?
I'd be competing at some sort of, whether it's a sport or work or job or something. I'd be doing something with competition.
Nice. The best thing to eat after a hangover, after the club? Or during a hangover, I should say.
Breakfast burrito from Bandito.
Okay. I'd probably went with Spinelli's Pizza.
Ooh, okay. I like
if your game was a clothing brand, what brand would it be?
Drippy.
Oh, nice. First take or undisputed?
First take.
Okay.
You an undisputed fan?
I like both, man, but I like one from each. I like Max Kellerman, but I like Shannon Sharp too. Skip is cool too. Okay. Skip's just kind of like a contrarian and a LeBron hater, but I like Max and I like Shannon though. I like one from each. Your favorite account on Instagram to follow?
Rose Crombie.
Rose Crombie. I don't know who that is. I gotta look that up though.
That's my girl.
Okay. It's a question that we call franchise, sign, and wave. We're going to do shooters edition. You got to franchise a guy that you got to build your team around. You got to sign a guy that you're going to keep, and you got to waive a guy. So your options are Reggie Miller, Ray Allen, Klay Thompson. Who you franchising, who you signing, who you waiving?
Klay Thompson.
Is that who you franchising?
Klay Thompson, Reggie Miller, and
Ray Allen.
I'm a big Klay fan. I'm franchising Klay. I'm signing Ray Allen, and I'm waiving Reggie Miller. Well, I mean, that just probably shows my age right there. That shows my age for sure.
A little bit, but I can't say that I would disagree with you, though. I can't say that I disagree with you, man. If you could act in a movie role next to one actress, who would it be?
Dang, that's tough. Mila Kunis, maybe?
Okay. One thing people assume about you that's not true.
That all I can do is shoot.
Facts. I've seen you get to the cup with some nice jellies a few times. Last question, man. We'll let you get out of here. If you had some advice for a person that was coming up and wanted inspiration, if you had some advice for them that they wanted to play at the highest level like you did, what would your advice be to them?
My advice would be kind of the cliche, like you never know who's in the stands, because that one game that Dickie V was at, I didn't know he was there. And I could have very well had a bad game or had a bad attitude that game. Funny story about that game, I had 27 points, but I only played 2.5 quarters because I got probably 3, arguably 4 really, really bad foul calls called on me. And this one ref, he got suspended like a week and a half later because he did this to another player in the county where he just he made some really questionable calls back to back to back and kind of changed the whole thing. He made the game really about him instead of about the players.
Right.
And I could have very well like thrown a fit that game and caused the scene or like, just made a fool out of myself. And Dickie V could have seen that and been like, man, that kid is he's a head case. And that cliche, like you never know who's in the stands, you never know who's watching. If I didn't, exemplify that cliche, then I would have never been playing at Louisville. So that's my advice.
Great way to close the podcast. Ryan McMahon, congratulations on a wonderful career, man. You're a Cardinal legend now. I wish you the best going forward, man. And so now when you see us old heads in the gym playing one-on-one now, you can go ahead and jump on in now. You can go ahead and jump in the ones, man. And that's one thing I loved about you, man, because we would be in there playing one-on-one and working out, and you were always either around waiting for us to finish, or you had just finished, or you were coming in to work out, man. And so continue that work ethic, no matter what it is, on or off the court, man, and you'll be successful, man. But I appreciate you taking time out of your day to come through on the podcast, man.
Man, I appreciate you too. It was fun talking. Thanks for having me.
All right, appreciate it. Talk to you later, man.
Peace.
Later.